Hello everybody, and you'll have to give me a second because I am recording this immediately after seeing the episode, and to quote a superhero,
Oh my goodness!
Before we get into the episode itself though, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's Beastars video over on Twitter, at Nacho Gashardo, at GregT014, at Cheetah Spotty, at PixelPeteYT, and at Melissa60487155. Thanks so much for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, everybody, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Beastars video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Now then, okay, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. You don't gotta twist my arm, believe me. I want to talk about this one, although this may be the most scattershot episode I've ever recorded. I didn't even write down too many notes, which is pretty rare for me. Usually I'm like jotting down every little thing that comes to mind, but for this one I was just so enthralled by the episode that I couldn't even really like pull myself out of it to write down notes because it was just so engaging. It was just wow, like I don't even know where to start, because it's essentially the aftermath of what happened with Lewis. Or Louis, I suppose. I've seen people say like Lewis or Louis, like some people say like, I don't like when you say Lewis, and then I switch it up to Louis, and then people said that they didn't like it when I said Louis. So now I just don't know what to say. I mean, technically it seems like it's French. The characters in the show say Louis, so I guess I'll just kind of do what I do with Vinland Saga and just sort of interchange them. I hope that's cool, but basically what we have here in this episode is the fallout from what happened with Lewis, and he is a mess. Not so much the physical injury, mind you. He seemed to have taken that pretty much in stride. For the most part, he is torn up over not being able to perform to the degree that he wanted to. He wanted to keep being the Reaper. He wanted to hold on to the mantle of his essentially his claim to fame, what makes him a Beastar. He didn't really want to let that go. Not even really taking in the fact that his fellow students were concerned for him. He didn't feel like it was concern. He felt like it was pity, that they were looking down on him. And you know that's from a whole myriad of issues. And folks have been very kind to me, not spoiling things, but the one thing I have heard a lot, and it's not a spoiler, it's just that a lot of people have been like, yeah, Louis has a lot of baggage. There's a lot of baggage there. So yeah, because I had said last week that Louis seems like the kind of character who has a lot of baggage that he's like not sharing with people. And every one of the comments was like, yep. that is Lewis to a T. So I'm gonna be kind of excited to see. I don't know if excited is the right word, but I am anticipating some emotional things from Louis as a character, because he really carries a lot of weight on his shoulders, and that comes from like the reputation of being the Beastar, that comes from being a herbivore and how he feels about that, his own self-pitying nature, even though he would never admit it. And it just makes Lewis such a fascinating character. I caught some heat last week for saying that he was the best boy. And like, listen, Lugosi and Louis, especially after this episode, oh my goodness, but Lugosi and Louis are both best boys. I just happen to like one like 0.0001% more, you know what I mean? Like I just personally find Louis that little bit more interesting. Lugosi is a good boy, bestest boy, the bestest boy there ever was, is, and shall be. But Louis though, like that's where I'm at. Like Lugosi's great. I love Lugosi to pieces. I really like him. He's sweet. He's genuine. Especially in this episode, you see the layers to him. You see how sweet he is, but on the inside beats the heart of a monster. Like you really do feel for Lugosi here. But I just find Louis that little bit more intriguing because of his own nature, like the demons he faces. Like they both face their own inner demons, but I just find Louis that little bit more interesting. And it's not a knock against Lugosi, because he really does deliver some stellar moments in this show. And not just in the show, this episode in particular, yeah, Lugosi MVP. Lugosi takes this episode, although that surprise from Lewis was pretty cool. But like, Lugosi really is the king of this week's episode, and I don't think that's even really up for debate. Because essentially, what Lugosi gets to do in this week's episode is Lugosi plays the quote-unquote villain, since in the aftermath of Louis' leg, he ends up having to step down from the role of the Reaper, and he ends up appointing Bill to take over, which I thought was kind of interesting. He specifically asks Bill to take over as the Reaper, quote unquote. And I have a theory about that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But he chooses Bill. And Bill played one of the villains, so now they need somebody to play the villain, and they need somebody relatively big, preferably a predator. And so they go with Lugosi. And I was a little shocked because I thought it would be his other buddy, the character who's, oh my goodness, I have forgotten his name again. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll write it down next time. But I thought it would be his buddy, since he wanted to be an actor again, but he's being forced to be a stagehand. But he was pretty cool about it. He's like, no, I'm not upset. Go do your thing. So I was like, oh, okay, what a good man. But Lugosi is not interested in being in the play. Like, that's not his thing. He's a stagehand. He's not really meant to be an actor, at least as far as he's concerned. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Lugosi got passion out the wazoo, so I think he should be on stage. But if he wants to be a stagehand, man wants to be a stagehand, and there ain't nothing wrong with stagehands. Stagehands are some of the most important members of a theater. So if Lugosi wants to be a stagehand, he can be a stagehand. But in this particular case, he don't got a choice. In this particular case, there is no choice. He has to do this. So Lugosi ends up playing the villain, but in actuality, he plays the hero to the extreme. But he actually gets a villain in the form of Bill, who's playing the hero. It's all topsy-turvy. It's all upside down. Now, as for Bill is a interesting character, because I feel like I want to like him, but the whole rabbit's blood thing, man, he's essentially doping, which is interesting. Like, again, like, they really do manage to bring elements from our world into Beastars in ways that I wasn't expecting, because they even call it doping, at least the fan subs that I was watching. They specifically say it is doping. And I was sort of taken aback by that, because I'm like, wow, they're really talking about some serious... Beastars does not shy away from talking about stuff that other shows would deem uncomfortable. And so the approach for that, by making Bill say, like, 'cause to Bill's point of view, he's like, I kind of need this, because I need to feel big and large and in charge if I'm going to go out on stage and play this role. Because friggin' Louis didn't help. Lewis kept getting in my head, telling me that, like, this is what I have to do, and all these eyes are gonna be on me, and blah blah blah. And I want to sympathize, but my man's drinking rabbit's blood. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, I can't. And he as a character intrigues me, right? Because he seemed so kind. Like, when we see him, especially when he's talking with Louis in the hospital wing, he seems like a little bit boastful, but I just assumed that was mostly bravado and that he was a genuine dude. But after the rabbit's blood thing, that put him in my crosshairs for, like, you killed Tem. Like, that's like, I again, manga fans, don't tell me, but that's my current running theory. Is I was like, okay, the way that he was speaking, I can see him going into some sort of rage or like a bloodlust or something, and him being the one who killed Tem, not out of malice, but out of just like losing control. That's the kind of dude that Bill strikes me as. Now, I don't know if that's, like, if I'm way off, and I don't want to know, so don't bother commenting about it. I really beg of you, do not. But I find that interesting. I just find Bill to be an interesting character, and I would love to see him continue to play the antagonist, at least to Lugosi. I don't want him to be like the antagonist for everybody. Like, I don't want him to be like the school bully or anything. But I would like to see his continuing dynamic with Lugosi explored, because they shared they shared a moment on that stage. Like, that fight was intense. And can we talk about that fight? Lugosi went wild side. Like, Lugosi was fighting like an MMA fighter out there, and I don't even like MMA, but I liked that scene. And Lugosi just wailing on Bill, like, and again, like, when he dropped the sword, I knew, like Lugosi drops the sword, and even Bill's like, and the whole audience was like, and I was like, okay, sorry, but you could tell something was about to go down, and go down it most certainly did. Lugosi went at Bill with a fury the likes of which I have not seen out of Lugosi. I hope to not see again, because I don't like seeing my boy like that. Like, that broke my heart, seeing him wail on Bill, because, like, I don't care about Bill, but seeing Lugosi almost, like, lose control, I was like, no, my boy, not like this, Lugosi, not like this. But at the same time, like, his whole carnivore side taking over, like, his bestial side taking over, and you know why it was, because you even see flashes of Haru when he's wailing on Bill, and in his head, he even says, like, I'll never forgive you. In his head, he's imagining, like, oh, like, what if this happened to Haru? What if he did this to Haru? But deep down, it's him wailing on Bill because he wants to, like, you could tell, like, it's almost like he's hitting himself. Like, it's Lugosi, like, trying to beat back the carnivore side of him, and Bill just happens to be the unfortunate person on the other end of that. Like, it really does feel like Lugosi was fighting not just against Bill for doing something deplorable, but also, like, trying to be like, I'm not like you. Like, he was actually trying to, like, fight back against that, and it came out physically against Bill. And it broke my heart. And again, not because I like Bill or anything, and I don't dislike Bill either. Again, I'm, like, intrigued by Bill. But it wasn't so much hitting Bill, although I was thinking, like I wish you guys could have seen me just squirm in my chair. I was like, no, Lugosi, stop! But it was just the fact that the emotions running through Lugosi, like, you could feel it come through the screen, and it broke my heart, because again, like, while Lewis may be my best boy, Lugosi is my close second. In fact, they're both best boys. There you go, I said it, they're both best boys. And seeing Lugosi like that, it just shattered my heart. And, like, thinking about it right now, I'm just, like, they nailed that scene. That scene was beautifully done. The way it starts, the impact of the fists on flesh, and even just, like, the way it ends with where Bill just, like, starts tearing through Lugosi, and Lugosi says, like, this is the blood of the carnivore that I hate so much. Like, this is the blood, like, this is my blood on the floor that I can't stand. And it's like, no, I hate this, but I love this at the same time. And just when I thought, like, all hope is lost, and like, Lugosi's gonna have to, like, lay there and take this not this beating, but, like, lay there and just, like, give up and let Bill win, because that's part of the play, right? Just when I think that, my boy arrives. My boy Lewis shows up like the king that he is, like the Beastar that he is. I lost my mind. Folks, when I tell you that I literally cheered, I am being 100% genuine. I cheered in my seat. I was just freaking out. And this scene, this scene is so insanely triumphant in a way that, like, just warms your heart. But at the same time, you know, like, there's gonna be some ramifications from this, like, because Lewis, like, telling him, like, I know your secrets and I know what you've done. And it cuts to the vial of rabbit's blood that hits a foot. Like, you see this, the rabbit's blood hits somebody's foot, and you're not sure who it is until now. Like, at that moment where you realize, like, oh, it was Louis. Oh, man. And it's that scene. Lewis coming in like the hero he plays in the play. Like, it's phenomenal. I thought the whole second half of this episode, like, the first half of this episode is great in terms of building intrigue and developing these characters, but the second half of this episode is some of the most emotionally gut-wrenching and satisfying and beautiful and hype-inducing moments from this season thus far. And I'm not just saying that. I was so, like, the roller coaster of emotions in just a couple minutes was wild, right? Like, it took me to the wild side. It was so good. And it also really hammered home, like, listen, I know people love Haru, and I know people love Legoshi Haru, but, like, I'm shipping it. It's all about Louis and Legoshi, or Louis Legoshi, whatever you want to say. It's all about, I don't know what their ship name is. That's the comments that I want to see, is just what the ship name is, because I'm on board. This is my OTP. I'm sorry. I'm all about it. Like when he reaches out for Legoshi's hand, and Legoshi says, like, his hand is thin, but it lifts me up. Legoshi's inner monologue, I talked about this in the first video, but Legoshi's inner monologue, like the scenes, every scene is already fantastic, but Legoshi's inner monologue just nails it. It just nails it every time, and it's just beautifully done. And this whole episode, I could keep gushing, like, I could keep going on, like the animation during the fight scenes, right? Like phenomenal. I could keep going, and you know that I could, but I'm gonna end the video here. I'm gonna wrap it up before I talk too much. I know that's the name of the channel, but I don't want to keep you here all day. On that note, though, everybody, I think I have to give this week's episode a solid rank of S. Again, the highest rank you can get from me, and I just gave an S rank to the other show that aired today, Stars Align. If you're not watching Stars Align, do so. It's fantastic. But that's 2 S's in one day. Hot dang. On that note, everybody, that just about wraps everything up. But before we go, as always, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Ginkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omner Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, and Verdon. Thank you all so much for your continued support over on Patreon, and hey, if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then by all means go ahead and check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get for as little as $1 a month, and get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. But on that note, everybody, that's going to be a video, so I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't going to tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. And if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.